Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Creative Warriors online program powered by Vidyadaan with LPU. Here, today we are talking about personality and the personal branding. So, yesterday we had a wonderful session with a journalist, and he also mentioned that every journalist has to make and create their own image also. So, here we have a wonderful a specialist, Miss Aparna Athreya. She's a storyteller, story coach, motivational speaker, educator, and entrepreneur. She has worked extensively in development and training in education and business. She started her career 17 years back as a software engineer, and now she is into field of education and development. A master storyteller and a personality development and personal branding coach. She uses the power of stories and branding to create rich, immersive experience across educational and organizational contexts. So, Aparna ma'am, most welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to meet you, and good afternoon and namaste to everyone here.
Yes, ma'am. And last time we had a wonderful session with you, and this time, especially doing it for journalists and aspiring journalists, I must say, those who are in college and will be undergoing the industry very soon, maybe this year or next year. So, over to you, ma'am. Already given you rights.
Thank you so much. Okay, so somebody says there is a light issue, is it, at my end? Okay, let me just try and see if I can.
Yes. So getting into personal branding nowadays, when social media is so much there, and we like it's morning namaskar happens on our phone to Instagram nowadays.
Yeah.
So how important is personal branding as an individual? And coming back to the journalist, every journalist, they have their own image. So management and creating that image must be a big task.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for inviting me to this forum for talking about a subject that I love and I live by. So thank you. And if I can just be spotlit so that I can see myself on the screen. So for everyone who's listening, let me start off with what has inspired me to really think about who I am and why I am and how I am. And today we're going to talk about why, the how, and the what. Let me start off with a quote that Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, once said. He said, "Personal branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room." And that's really the crux of what a personal brand is. And I can tell each and every one of you here that there are a lot of things that you're going to say, and a lot of times when you're not going to be in the room. You are, after all, journalists, and you are the givers, the keepers, and the gatekeepers of information. And what you are going to do is pick up information which common man like me do not have access to, and you will present it to me, not in my drawing room and not sitting with a cup of chai with me, but you will send it through media which I can't touch and feel, but I can certainly experience. And that's why the power of personal branding is of a special importance to everyone who comes from the field of media. You and I know that. But what exactly does it entail to be a master personal brand, right? That's the whole crux of today's conversation. And the world leaders today are keenly looking at not only about what they stand for, but also how they are being received and whether they are being received for what they believe they stand for, right? And that is what creates an authentic brand. Can you please spotlight me, Pooja or Sakshi?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
I am spotlit? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What I would like to now do is share my screen. Okay. And on my screen, I'll take you through, a few tips, tricks, and techniques that will help you elevate your personal brand and be somebody that the world of journalism will have to reckon with, right? So I'd like you to keep sending me your YouTube comments, wherever it is you're watching, so that I have an idea as to how you're receiving the information that I'm giving you. Let me start off by sharing my screen and going to my first. You see, I would love to start off with this particular image, an image which all of us have seen, have heard about. So I often ask this question: when you come across this image, what is the first word that comes to your mind when you see this, image? You and I know that the person on your screen right now is Mother Teresa. And let me just ask Pooja, what is the first word that comes to your mind, Pooja, when you look at this?
Empathy.
Yeah, isn't that right? Empathy, and some people will say some compassion, some people will say upliftment of the downtrodden, right? And some people will say a saint. But here is what is magical about it. There are a billion people in India who know who Mother Teresa is, and yet the only words that we will ever hear can be counted on the fingers of my hand. Just about 10 words is what all of them will put together say. Isn't that strange, mysterious, and magical at the same time? 1.4 billion people in India and even outside across the world, they will have the same words to say. Why is it that we think of these same words every single time we look at her? Or this gentleman, all of us know this gentleman, right? Now, what is it that we think of? And I will tell you the answers that I get, right? We will have ahimsa, father of the nation, freedom.
Yes, I got Ahinsa ke Pujari.
Bilkul. Don't we do that? Everybody talks about Satya and Ahimsa as the ideals that he stood for. And again, he's a world leader. He's one of the most revered personalities of the last century, and hopefully this too. And we all have under 10 words to describe this man. The first words. The reason why these people are who they are is because they are all, and you know this gentleman also, who's more recent to us, right? We have with us on your screen Abdul Kalam. And Abdul Kalam, I will often hear missile man or scientist, right? Or people's person, or somebody who loves children.
I'll say, ma'am, he's the one person I actually, give an example of to even my kids and everybody. That you be like him. Try to be like him.
Yeah. So not only do personalities like this bring in the same thoughts in our minds, similar thoughts in our minds, but they also inspire us to be like them, right? They inspire us to be like them. They inspire the next generations to be like them. Why is it that these people have such few words to describe them? It's not because they are people who can only be defined by those words. It is because they have got the biggest brands that define, they are the biggest brands of the world today. And because they are a brand, that brand is defined by a few set of words. And that is why that brand is so big. It's big because the first things that you can think of for these people are exactly the same every single time. Do you think it happened by accident? Do you think ऐसे हो गया, बस हो गया, coincidence था, हो गया? बिल्कुल नहीं, ऐसे तो होता ही नहीं है. So what we achieve, what these people have achieved, their brand that they have created comes with careful thought, careful action, and careful words, the words that they speak. They're all carefully crafted. Why am I saying thoughts, words, and deeds? Is because as a journalist, each of you has a very, very big responsibility on your shoulder. Every thought you have, every word that you speak, and every action that you take is going to be watched by millions, hopefully millions and billions. So are you, in every thought, action, and deed, are you going to help create a brand, an authentic brand of who you are, is the question. I'm going to just take you to the next screen. These are new age people. All of you know them, right? Now, I would like to know all of you know them because they're all from media. They're all from your core fields, right? On my left, on your left is Arnab Goswami, right? So Pooja, you can tell me what is the first word that comes to your mind when you, I'm not talking, and here I don't want to be political in the sense, I'm not asking you what kind of journalist are they, good or bad. I'm asking what is the first word that comes to your mind when you listen to Arnab Goswami? Yeah.
Well, I'll be honest, when I maybe yeah, aggressive, fearless, and somebody who's not shy to
Yeah.
say anything.
Aggressive, fierce, bold, firebrand. These are the names, right? And so for Barkadat, you will hear very, very similar words. At the end of the day, can you tell me how many journalists are there in our country today? More than you and I can count, right? But in all of them, there'll be a handful, maybe Rajdeep Sardesai, maybe a few others, right? Shireen Ban, who we actually know and who we actually, can, their thoughts, deeds, and actions come to our mind as soon as we look at them. I'm not talking about whether they're good and bad. It's not my business to do that. I'm not here talking about good journalism or bad journalism. I'm here talking about how can you create your brand in journalism. And I'm assuming that all of you will be good journalists. How can we create this brand? What is it that they have done? What is it that Barkadat has done? What is it that Arnab Goswami will not take any other word, accept any other word other than the words that we've just talked about. He wants to be aggressive. He wants to be loud. He wants to be, fierce. He wants to be a firebrand. That's why he is all that. If anybody goes and says he's a soft-spoken gentleman, he wouldn't like that. Let me tell you that, because he's trying very, very hard in every thought, every deed, and every action, right? In every spoken word, to be exactly what he wants us to think of him, right? Now, that's a choice. The question I want to ask is, what is your choice? And how, based on your choice, what are the words that you want your readers or your viewers to think of you when you become a brand? And you are already on the journey of becoming a brand because you've chosen to join lovely professional university. You've joined a great course in journalism, and you are going to be a great journalist. Therefore, what exactly would you like your viewers or your readers to think of you? That's something that's a personal question. But I'm going to tell you the what, the how, and the why that makes a brand. Okay. So I hope there are no questions, but if there are questions up until now, you can shoot them out on your chat and somebody will get it to me. Why?
I'll raise a question here. Now, you have just mentioned he wants to be shown like this.
Mhm.
So he's creating a band having these tags that I should be called like this.
Yes.
Is it like we have to decide first how do we show our image to public and then work on it?
No, these are the outcomes. Okay, these are the outcomes. I'm going to teach you the process which results in these outcomes. You don't have to think of the words first, but you do have to think of what is the kind of journalist you want to be. The outcome is people telling that you're, a firebrand, or that you are a genius, or that you are a compassionate person, that you are a quality-driven person, that you are a person of ahimsa, of satya, whatever it is, right? Those are the outcomes. But what is the process that leads to the outcomes is what I'm here to bring to you today, right? So let me take you to why do we need a brand at all? Right? Why do we need a brand? So what if we can call them with a few names? So what if we can recognize them? So what? I'm sure it's self-explanatory, but it's not as easy as we think. There are many layers why we need a personal brand. I'm going to just name out some of the reasons why you need a personal brand. Okay. So one of the most important reasons is your brand drives value. Okay. If you know that there is a controversial topic at hand, and you want somebody to make a big noise about it, you will call all of these, the Arnab Goswamis of the world. Why? Because you want noise, and you know that it's a controversial topic, and that's the value that they drive home. I am not afraid of controversial topics. I am not afraid to give a counter view, and I am not afraid to bring anyone to talk and explain to me. And I will show down anyone, no matter what position they have. That's the value that they have brought to the table, right? That's their value. They want to be known that they are people who are capable of defying what the norm is, right? For example, right? There may be other journalists who are very scientific journalists, right? Or investigative journalists. Now, investigative journalists want to be known for attention to detail, be open to multiple perspectives, want to go back to the root cause of the problems, right? Now, that is investigative journalism. And there are so many kinds. I'm sure you're better judges of what kinds of journalism are there. But it is your brand which will drive the value that you give. Looking at the brand, people will know what is the value that you bring to the table. And isn't it important for you? Because as a journalist, you will have to be offered a position, maybe as a slot in a TV channel, or maybe a column in the newspaper, or maybe a blog on or a vlog on a website. You need to find your space. In order for you to find your space, you need to be able to communicate your value. The more branding you do, the more value you're communicating without having to say it every time. Nobody today, you and I know, is interested in just looking at a resume. Nobody is interested in looking at what are your qualifications. Yes, it's important, no doubt. But there are hundreds of people who have the same qualifications as you. You know that, right? So then what is it that you're bringing to the table? That's what brand does. Okay, your brand precedes you. You don't have to be in the room. Your brand will be in the room before you reach the room, right? A brand also obviously totals up all your attitudes. What all the words that we use today for Barkadat, and for Mother Teresa are all attitudes. The sum total of the attitudes that we see. And your brand carries your attitude as tags, like Pooja just said, as tags, right? I wonder if you ever paid attention to, when we hear certain names, we have a certain emotion. It elicits a certain emotion. It's very important. Emotions is very important because emotions is what allows us to engage with a person. Emotions is what makes us make or break a deal. For example, if I'm a buyer and somebody is selling, it's emotion which will make me finally buy it. Not that I'm not looking at the data. I'm looking at data. I'm looking at the product. I'm looking at its quality. But finally, what's going to actually make me buy it is an emotion, an emotional response. The same way people elicit emotional responses in us. I come from the software industry. And, we had many, many leaders, right? I've worked under many, many extremely effective leaders. But each leader had a very different feeling, right? Now, when we're sitting in a meeting and somebody says, Ram is coming to this meeting. Kya? वो बंदा आ रहा है क्या? Oh my gosh! चलो सब मतलब हम सब मतलब जितना बोलना है बस उतने ही हम कहेंगे, एक भी शब्द और नहीं बोलेंगे, क्योंकि अरे वो बंदा तो बहुत 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 तंग करता है. And you feel that sense of apprehension. Oh my gosh, he's coming in. And then there were people who, if we knew they were coming in, we'd sit back and say, wow, we're going to have a good meeting. This guy is coming. This leader is coming. He's so inspiring. And we feel a sense of positivity before they walk in, and I have had the good fortune to work with many leaders like that. I have been in, for example, I've been in Infosys for long enough. And every time we heard that Nandan Nilekani was coming into the meeting, there would be a sense of excitement because Nandan always brought in something great for us to listen. He always walked in with something for us to learn and walk away with. So there was a sense of inspiration. Right? You look at Abdul Kalam. Anytime I say the word Abdul Kalam, you feel a sense. You feel good. Right? There's something good about what you feel. And it's a very important thing. You need to know what feeling you want to elicit, right? It need not always be good. There are people who elicit fear. Hitler elicited fear and he wouldn't have it any other way. He wanted to elicit fear and he achieved it, right? So his brand was all about fear and causing fear in the mind of the listeners, mind of his audience's mind. So your brand carries an emotion. It carries an emotion. And if you're smart and if you have a great brand, it will carry the emotion that you want it to carry. Okay. And the last is, It is your brand which will tell people what to expect from you. It is your brand which will define to me, okay, I'm going to have a great meeting because Nandan is walking into this meeting. I'm going to have because my expectation of Nandan is sky high. I know that he is the best sales guru I have ever met. And, if he walks into a room, I know that he's going to walk out teaching me something about business, something that I didn't know before, right? So my expectation is that he walks in, I'm going to walk away richer. The same way, if you're a journalist and your brand precedes you, right? Your brand helps me understand, even before I read your article or even before I listen to your program, I will know I'm going to have, spend this time well, or I'm going to read a good article. I know because I know that it's written by he or she, right? So that is the power of having a strong brand. It helps set expectations with your audience. It brings an emotion, and very often the emotion that you want them to have, right? It will carry with it tags of your attitudes. And most importantly, it is what drives your value. What is it that you're bringing to the table today? And today it's all about what are you bringing in that's different from somebody else? That value proposition is what a brand brings. Okay. So now let's move forward. And I'm going to talk to you briefly about what exactly comes together to form a brand, right? What are the building blocks of a brand? So I'm going to take you to my next screen, right? So now this is really the crux, okay? The why, the what, and the how a brand is created. Now, when you bring together the why, the what, and the how, then you are on your way to creating a brand. The first thing is the why. Okay, you always start with the why, right? Now, the why is, what is your purpose in this world? Okay, in your career, for example. Of course, purpose is a very large statement, but let's now narrow it down to your careers, right? You as journalists, what is your purpose in journalism? Your purpose. I'm not asking the purpose of journalism. I want to know what is your purpose in the world of journalism, right? Why are you waking up every morning to deliver what? Are you bringing factual, updates on some specific field that matters in this world? Or are you going to investigate things until there are no mysteries left for us to wonder about? Is that what your purpose is as a journalist? Or are you a data journalist who will crunch data, work with it, slice, dice it until you get the right stories that you need to get from the data, from real factual data, right? So now, what exactly is the purpose of you in the world of journalism? You have to know that. I'm going to tell you a story as to why knowing the purpose is very, very important, right? And how to find your purpose. Now, the next is what, right? Now, what is, okay, fine, you've got now without a purpose, you can't even begin, okay? Begin the journey on personal branding or anything in this world for that matter. So once you have your purpose, the next question is, what do you have that you're going to deliver it to me with? How are you going to deliver your purpose to me with? What do you have? What are the skills that you have? What is your unique selling point? What are you bringing that, that others don't have? What are the skills you have? That is very, very, very important, obviously. And you're all already on the path to acquiring great skills. You're in a great university, so you're going to acquire the skills. You're going to learn it from looking at leaders in the world of journalism. So you have the ways to get skills, but what is you don't have as a ready answer, it's not a pill, is what is unique about you. So skills is the first step. You must master all the skills that every journalist should have. But more importantly than that, as you acquire skills, you'll have to look at what is it that makes me unique. what is that I bring to this world that very few others bring? Is it your attention to detail, or is it your ability to work with across diverse fields, or is it your communication, or is it your ability to unearth stories that others can't? Is it your your empathy towards all those things which are socially important? Exactly, is it? What is your unique selling point? Very, very important. Skills is something I'm confident all of you will acquire if you put the effort, but what, even after putting effort, very often people do not have is that unique aspect, right? What is it that differentiates you from the others? So that skills, your skill sets and your USPs are the what of a personal brand. And how is, okay, you have the skills, okay, you have a purpose, so you can deliver your purpose with your skills, but how are you leaving me? How are you living this? How are you making the world around you feel? What is it? That's the emotion that I'm talking about, right? How is it that you're conducting yourself? Are you, do you have gravitas? Do you have presence, right? Do you have empathy? Do you have, are you charming, right? Are you somebody who really is hardworking? Are you somebody who's exceedingly good with words, right? So which means that you're very, very articulate. Um, are you very caring? What are your attitudes that you bring? Or are you very fierce? Are you very courageous? No, those are the things that some of the other journalists have, right? So what are the attitudes that you bring? And what do you leave with your viewers or your listeners? And these attitudes, when they come together with your actual skills and your USPs and your purpose, then that intersection point, right, that center where they all meet, is where your brand is. And the most successful in this world are those people when these three circles merge into a single circle, where their entire purpose is delivered by their entire skill sets, and their entire skill sets is augmented, complemented by their attitudes. All of them, when they come together and merge together, the intersection is one single circle, which means there is no Venn diagram required. They all merge into one, and then that circle, that single circle where all the three have merged in totality, right, where one blends into the other completely, then there will be another Mahatma Gandhi, because those are the people who have the biggest brands when all of them merge together. I hope I've made this clear, and I hope you've understood this, because this is where your understanding begins and ends. Now it is only a question of how do I get a purpose, how do I acquire my skills, and how do I have the right attitudes, right? But this is the beginning and the end of what a personal brand really is. Okay. So if there are no questions, I'm going to go now to the next screen, and I'm going to just, dwell on a story for a moment. Okay, I'm going to dwell on a story. I'm a storyteller, so I would like to tell you a story about just finding purpose. Okay, and each of you journalists who are listening to this knows that it is important, but I think a story will really drive this philosophy home. This is a wisdom story, a Zen story. It's about a young man. Okay, a young man, probably not too older than you. And this young man, he has a job and he earns, and he's living a life, and things are all right. There's nothing wrong with his life, and yet somehow he doesn't feel like waking up every morning and going and doing his job. He just does it because he has to. And he earns money, but he just goes around, and another month goes by, another month. He keeps working, he keeps earning, but there's really nothing that's making him feel excitement, of making him feel as if his life is well spent. And so he's very disillusioned, and he constantly is wondering what next and so on and so forth. And one day he meets a friend and he tells him, you see, whatever I do, and I'm doing it, whatever I do, whether I work, whether I'm at home, I don't feel good about it. I don't feel like time has been well spent. I don't feel like my life is worth it. And it's really bothering me, he said. His friend listens to him. Of course, he's cribbing, so he listens to him and he says, I get you, but I can't solve the problem for you. I can't. I can understand you, but I can tell you this. If you really want to solve your problem, there is an old wise man who lives down the village by the river. Why don't you go to him? And everybody says he has an answer to everything. So why don't you go to him? He says. So this young man, looking for a life to live that's worthy to live in, he decides to go and meet the old wise man. And he walks down the village. He walks up to the river. And there by the banks of the river, in a little hut, lives this old wise man. And he walks in, and this man is just doing what everybody else does. He's just sitting and cleaning up his hut. And this young man looks at him and says, sir, I have come because I have a bit of a problem. So he looks at him and he says, tell me, what is your problem? He says, well, I'm working, I'm earning, and yet I don't feel my life is worth it. I don't know what to do. I don't ever feel like I'm spending my life well. And I really don't know what to do, he says. And the old man looks at him and smiles and says, I think you should take a walk with me down the river. And so they both go down the river. And there in the river, he can see people. He can see people who are walking in the shallow end of the river. And they're all looking, they have a sieve in their hands, a net in their hands. And they're all taking out the sand, which is at the bottom of at the riverbed, and they're looking at it. And they're looking at, they're moving the water flows down the sieve, and they're looking, for something. And then the old man looks at him and says, do you know what they're doing? He says, yeah, they're looking for gold. So what has this got to do with me? He says. So the wise man says, well, I want to tell you this. There are three kinds of people who come looking for gold. There's that first kind who come and they just come in, they start looking, and they find a big, big stash of gold. And they're ecstatic. And they just came looking and they found what they wanted. And then they go away super happy. And then there is another kind who comes and looks for it, knows that some people have found and left, and yet they're not able to find. And they look for some time, for a few days, they're still not able to find. And so they think that it's not there. And they think that it's a waste of time. And they go back dissatisfied. They go back knowing that, they missed it. And they never stop cribbing about it. And then there are the third kind of people who also don't find it on time. They need time. They look at it every day. They come back every day looking for gold because they know that there are some people who came and found it. So they have faith that they will find it. And they keep looking until one day they find it. And the day they find it is a day that's happier than the happiest days of anybody's life. For it was a search that was well worth its while. And then they take that back and then they cherish that goal like nothing else. And they always remember, and that gold is a reminder for them that when you look for it, you will find it. And the young man listens, smiles, and says, tell me, what am I supposed to? He says, well, that gold is life's purpose. Look for your life's purpose. It is like looking for gold. There are some people who find their life's purpose the moment they start looking for it, and they go back ecstatic. And then there are some who will look for it and not find it, and crib about it, and be unhappy about it, be dissatisfied, and never come out of it. But then there is the third kind who knows that there is a purpose, and knows that if they look hard, they will find it. And the day they find their purpose, they will cherish that. And that will take them through their entire lives. What kind are you, son? He asks. And the young man looks at him and smiles and says, I would love to be like the third kind, but is there a purpose for me? And the old man looks at him and says, well, is there gold in the river? Any part of this river, there's always gold. You just have to look for it and look hard enough, he says. And so on that day, that young man goes with courage in his heart and faith in his mind and a sprint in his step, because he knows that all he has to do is find that purpose. And once he does, he knows that he will cherish it for his entire life. The reason I'm telling you this story is because as a journalist, you have a job. You will find a job. You will, broadcast programs. You will write articles. You will vlog. You will blog. Whatever it is that you will do, that's a job. But do you have a purpose? What is your purpose? What are you going to do? What are you going to do in this world of journalism? What are you going to bring? What is the value you're going to bring to me as a reader, to me as a listener to you? Find your purpose. The moment you find your purpose, you'll find reason to wake up every morning, because you know you have a purpose to live up to, a purpose to achieve, right? So that's the importance of a purpose. And like I said, the next most important things is, how exactly are you going to get your skills and your USP? Now, this screen on your screen is a very simple Venn diagram. Okay, it comes to us from people who've written a lot of business frameworks, and this is a very, very interesting and an important one. Okay, and I'd like you to replace the word consumer with audience, because that's what journalists have, right? You have audiences. Either you have TV audiences, or you've got your print media, your readers, or whatever it is that you do, right? They are your listener, your audiences. So your USP is where the green tick mark is, right? Your USP is whatever your brand brings, right, which coincides with what your readers are looking for. What exactly are your audiences looking for? Now, if your brand includes that skill set, that is exactly what the consumers want, what your audiences want, then that will be unique to you. That will be unique to you. You have to identify the needs of your audience and find out from your skill sets, what exactly is it that I have that I can deliver to them, which my competitors, when I say competitors, it could be other journalists, right? It could be other people who are from your field of media, right? So having a skill set that the audience needs, that you have, that the others do not have, is what a unique selling point is. Now, there are other types of skills as well. If you share some skills along with all your other competition, which means all the other journalists and the people of media, if you share skills with them, for example, if you know how to maybe write a news article, right? Everybody knows how to write a news article. So who cares? Yours is just another news article. That's not your unique selling point. Everybody knows how to write a news article, right? And the worst would be if you know that your consumers need something, and you also know that it is your competition which is giving that skill to them, then that's a big red cross, because unfortunately, it's not helping you. It's not helping you create your USP. So what is it that will help you is, one, to have diverse skills, have a big, keep honing your skills, keep getting better and better at your field of journalism, and find out those aspects that really is something that you bring to the table that is intersecting with, or which is common to what your audiences actually want, right? The more you find skill sets that is needed by your consumers, the more likely you are to find something that's very unique to only you, right? And that is what your unique selling point will be. It's important for you to just not just have skill sets, because you know that the entire competition will also have those skill sets. And so what is more important is have your skill sets, but also have a very, very close watch in terms of what is it that makes you unique in this, right? So this is about the why. Okay, the story, the reason I told you the story was because it was the why of it. Sorry, that's the purpose. And this is really the what, right? What are the skills you bring to the table? So the why and the what I have covered. Now the third thing is really the how. Okay, so I'm just, I'd like you to, while you're watching this, right, I'd like you to look at what are the attitudes that you really have, okay, and that you aspire to have, especially in your workplace, right? So some values, some attitudes we're born with. We're born with some attitudes, and attitudes are cultivatable, no matter what people say to you, with effort and with willingness, right? With an intention, you can cultivate attitudes. So what I'd like you to look at is what are the attitudes that you aspire to bring to this world, right? Would you like to be a knowledgeable journalist, or would you like to be a trustworthy journalist, right? Or would you like to be a very, very, thoughtful journalist, for example, right? Or would you be a very decisive journalist, right? You take decisions like that, right? So what exactly are the attitudes you have and you aspire to have? Now, if you aspire to have some things that you don't already have, and you aspire something that you want to aspire, you have an intention to have, then you go after building that, cultivating that attitude, right? You get into, you do things. For example, you get into situations, or you accept projects where some of your attitudes can be built. For example, if you want to be a very knowledgeable journalist, right? Now you have, of course, you have knowledge that comes to you as part of your course. But if you want to be knowledgeable in one specific domain, say forensic sciences, right, then you have to be part of networks where forensic sciences, the latest developments in forensic sciences is being talked about. You have to be a part of forums, and you have to read the right books. You have to meet the right people, right? So you have to really create opportunities in order to cultivate these attitudes. Say you want to be a very, very decisive journalist, right? Now you have to look for opportunities where you have the ability, you will be given, the power to make decisions. It could be in a small intern position somewhere, or you have taken on a personal project, right? Today all kinds of people who are as young as you, even younger, have taken on many ventures and show their capabilities through their personal ventures, right? So pick up something where you have to be decisive, right? And if you don't already have it as an innate ability, which means an inborn ability, you can cultivate this ability, giving yourself the right opportunities. But most importantly, you need to have the intention to cultivate that. Don't try and cultivate an attitude that doesn't agree with you. Okay, if you are at your core, a gentle person, trying to be a very abrasive, aggressive journalist may not be, because they're conflicting, right? So choose attitudes that agree with you as a person, right? And choose those which, even if you want to cultivate them, choose them which are aligned to the kind of person that you're capable of accepting for yourself, right? So these are all about the attitudes. So now, this is really how I wanted you to understand what a brand is. And finally, I want to leave you with what is the ABCD, the journey that you need to undertake to be a personal brand, right? So the first The A, or the ABCD, is awareness. Awareness of who you are. Okay. And today, all the things that I told you starts here. What is your purpose? Having an awareness of what your purpose is, having an awareness of what are the skills I have today and what are the gaps that I have today in terms of being a great journalist. What are the gaps in my skill sets? What are the USPs that I know I should develop, right? And so on, right? So now awareness is where it all begins, and in awareness is where your foundation lies, because you start off from a point, right? You start off from a point and then go towards a destination. So what is your starting point? Your starting point is your awareness of where you are today. Do you have a purpose today? Awareness of having a purpose or not having a purpose. Awareness of what are the skills you have today, what are the skills you have to cultivate. Right? Awareness that this is the kind of person I am, these are the attitudes I already possess, but these are the attitudes that I need to cultivate. These are the opportunities I need to give myself. Right? Now that is awareness. Now building is starting to leverage opportunities, where you build networks, where you participate in projects, where you are undertaking personal assignments, where you are meeting people who are the stalwarts in your field, and helping create your identity. So which means when you meet these people, you will understand where you are versus them, and slowly your identity starts developing. The identity for yourself, you need to be very, very clear. Who am I? What is my journalism DNA, right? What is my DNA as a journalist? And that building happens once the awareness is there. Then you start developing it, right? You start developing it. Just it's a personal exercise. You develop it, you meet people, continue to firm up your identity based on what you've seen, based on how the world is, understanding what your consumers need or what your audiences need. And then begins the most important part of a branding journey, which is communicate your brand. Start, I don't know how many of you are really present in powerful media platforms. I'm sure many of you are. And if you're not, then choose those platforms where you can make your presence felt. Blog if you want to, vlog if you want to, speak to people if you want to, start communicating who you are in all the possible channels. Because finally, as a journalist, you need to have an audience. A journalist doesn't exist unless there is an audience. You might as well be a scientist who has all the data in your heads, but you're not. You're a journalist, and a journalist is a bridge between what the happenings in this world and bringing it to the world, right? You're the bridge. So therefore, you are in public platform, right? So you have to start communicating, because finally you're in the business of people. So you have to communicate. Find platforms where you can begin to communicate. And when you're communicating it, communicate according to the needs of your consumers, needs of your readers, needs of your listeners, needs of your audience. Understand them. And the building of the brand is a big part of building of your brand is understanding your audiences for your purpose. What is your purpose and what are the audiences for your purpose? So once you begin to communication is an iterative process. You keep communicating all your lives, you're going to communicate, but communicate it with your USP, communicate it with your attitudes, communicate it with your skills, putting all your skills together and communicate to your purpose, right? So last part is branding. Branding or personal brand is not cast in stone. With time, you will keep developing your brand. You will keep having to go back to your, those you communicate with and get feedback. How did this read, right? Or how did I come across? Are there ways in which I can do better? What are your needs? Are there needs that I have missed out, right? So understanding and constantly going back, looping back to your audiences to find out will make you aware. So I'll go back to your awareness again. Make you aware of new things, new aspects, which will again need you to build it, which will again need you to communicate it further and again go back to developing it, which means reaching out, getting feedback, getting a response to how your identity is being received. And this journey continues iteratively as long as you want to serve the world in your field of journalism. So that is what I had for you today. And I just wanted to tell you that my own journey, right, as a storyteller, as a story coach, has been an incredible journey of branding. And for me, I must tell you that I come from the world, from the software industry, and I was a very different brand then. Right, I was a software engineer, I was a technologist, I had blinkers on, I used to crunch data, I was a technologist, I really didn't look at the outside world. And then one day I decided, of course, it was a long journey, but one day I decided to move out of the software industry and move into the world of training, the world of storytelling, the world of education, the world of coaching. And I had to begin from scratch. I had to begin about awareness in this new field. Where am I in this new field, right? And what exactly is my purpose in this new field? What exactly are my skills that can help me deliver in this new field? And I had to build it one story at a time, one brick at a time. And for me, it was one story at a time. And then as I began to communicate, I started to develop a style, right? A gravitas, a way of doing it. And it was really the culmination of the many skills. Of course, I continue to learn, continue to create new peaks in terms of my skills. And there are many failures. Let me tell you, I fall. But how do I know I fell and I need to climb again? Is because I go back to my listeners. I go back to all the audiences that I connect with, and I ask them, how was it? Did you learn something? Was it valuable? Did you grow? Did you transform? Because in your transformation lies my growth, right? And then I get feedback and then I feed into it. So my ABCD in this world happened, in fact, when I even older than you probably are today. So branding is possible at any time. You need to just begin the journey. And I wish you the very, very best. And I'm sure each of you will be a great name to reckon with in the world of journalism. And I hope you do that, because the world needs the right journalists to sit at the right place so that we as the people know and we live an informed life that will help us grow and learn each day. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Pooja. And it was lovely connecting with the LPU University and your students. I wish them the very best.
Yes, ma'am, and wonderful session. But I have few questions coming up, ma'am.
Yeah.
So we can't leave you so early. As a layman or as a student, I have a different image. Okay, but when I go to industry, I'll have to build that image. But in the beginning, like I'll say in the first few years, I might have a different image, different perspective. Then as we grow, as we mature, we have a different perspective to see things. And of course, it hampers and it shows on our personality.
Yeah.
So is it easy to change that personality? Like from maybe a funny or I'll say a bubbly or a hilarious college student, turns to a serious, a very professional, a thorough professional journalist of crime.
Okay.
How will that transition take place?
Yeah. So, my answer to this is really about not letting go of who you are. I mean, you are who you are, right? So you need to take along who you are. And what is important is, one, choosing a purpose that inspires you. Okay. So the first thing that I always ask is take your time. It's like looking in that river for gold. Don't take the first purpose that somebody tells you, or don't choose a purpose just because it pays or just because there are jobs in that market. Choose a purpose that makes you wake up every morning and say, yes, another day, not, oh my gosh, another day, right? So you want to choose the right purpose. Now, if your purpose requires a certain image that that is divergent to who you are today, then you can create a broad spectrum of skills. We are a magnificent mind. We can develop all kinds of skills. And very often I tell this, even if you are a crime journalist, why not bring humor to it? There are people who bring the best of worlds together, right? You look at people like Trevor Noah, who comes from such a back and beyond South African childhood, and then here he is bashing Donald Trump and the presidents and the politics in the United States, and how and what humor, and he's talking about very serious things, and yet the humor that he brings is undeniable. So what I ask is, if something comes to you naturally, you don't have to change that or throw that away. See if you can blend it in, because today the world is willing for all kinds of innovation, all kinds of perspectives, and you can bring your own unique one.
Wonderful and very well said, ma'am. Even that reminds me of that Aapki Adalat show. Where it
Yes.
was completely serious, but he used to add
So much of humor.
a
Yeah.
little humor to it. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. No, that straight-faced humor he had, right? Without a smile on his face. He would just deliver these lines, which were quite amusing. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was wonderful listening to you, because I know there was less of interaction in this session. I'm sure in coming sessions we'll have them live with candidates doing the more of interaction part, and let's things go good
Certainly.
in
Sounds
the
good.
time when we get to meet people physically also, because I'm really waiting to meet you also in person. Last time also when we have spoken over the platform, I've said that I would really love to meet you, and my desire is still not filled. So yes,
I will certainly, yeah. And is the recording done?
yes, ma'am, and I'd like to offer a small gesture as on behalf of Media and Entertainment Skills Council. I'd like to, offer you a token of respect, a small gesture, giving you an appreciation certificate on behalf of my council. So thank you so much for being a part of this session. We'll be sending you the certificate soon.
Wonderful.
And thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Plus, also coming to the storytelling part, like we were discussing in before the session, tomorrow we'll have a session on storytelling, and it's by a storyteller, Miss Deepa Kiran. So
Oh, okay.
as the journalist also needs to write, and they need to understand how to tell a story with their situation or situation based story. So let's hear it from Ms. Deepa Kiran tomorrow. And thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for your time. It was pleasure talking to you. Always a pleasure having you.
Thank you
Uh,
very much.
really wonderful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, ma'am.
And
Take care.
yeah, if there is any further questions, or whenever people are viewing this, if there are any feedback, I would love to hear it from you. If if it comes to you, I'd be very happy to hear it.
Absolutely. I'm sending this feedback link to LPU team, who they'll be circulating the form to the candidates, and of course our Vidyadaan candidates are also watching, so we'll be sending a feedback link. Would love to hear it from you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Take care. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye bye. Namaste to all. Bye bye. Thank you.